Hello and welcome to NoCB, a grand strategy podcast. I am your host, TJ Hafer, and with me is our awesome panel, including Rose.
Hello.
Including Lambert.
Hello there.
And including Father Loris.
Hello.
How's everybody been? How's everybody? I feel like we don't really check in with like what's been going on. I guess we can do that at the end of the show. I'm just making the format more complicated so that you guys never really know what to suspect and are just constantly on edge. I'm a loose cannon podcast host.
Make sure we're all like awake just by like throwing us a curveball.
Yeah, thanks for that.
All right,
Keep it simple, stupid. Right.
So we're going to be talking about Magic the Gathering Arena today. We got some cool dev diaries. We got some fairly substantial ones for a number of things. I think we'll start out with CK3, where it's a little bit of a different sort of dev diary than we usually get. It's a little bit more of a kind of like how the sausage is made sort of dev diary versus like here's a look at the game dev diary. Hannah from the what is her actual title? I forgot to write it down. She's on like the quality assurance team, I think. User research, talking about kind of how they collect feedback and iterate on that feedback throughout the development process. Anything that stuck out to you guys about this one?
I just found it pretty cool to, peek behind the curtain a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's we got to look at what the portraits originally looked like for CK3.
Yes, well that's what I wanted to most talk about, to be honest.
Well, that was where you were supposed to jump in and be like, those portraits, god damn. That was your thing and you missed it, so I mean.
They are grim, aren't they? They're not very pleasant. I think universally,
I don't think grim is the right word. It's literally the opposite of the right word, which is far too colourful and simsy.
Yeah, I'm glad they went with a slightly more realistic look over a cartoony look. Just aesthetically, I
absolutely
prefer that. Yeah,
it fits the tone better. And also, the last time a big strategy game went with cartoony was Civ 6. And how many people have poked fun at that?
Yeah, I still hate the art in Civ 6.
Yeah, not a fan. Although I've never really been a fan. Civ 5 and 4's art didn't really do anything for me either, to be honest.
I liked the art style in Civ 5. In Civ 6, I'm like, the map doesn't really bother me, but like especially the military units just look like they're from a free-to-play mobile game, and I never really fully got over that.
I thought they had like learned the lessons from Civilization Revolution. I don't know if you remember that shit show like a good many years ago.
Kind of, sort of.
Like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was that was one of those things where there was a backlash, and then there was like a backlash to the backlash with the Civ 6 art style, and then there was like a backlash to the backlash to the backlash.
Oh, that's
But yeah, at the end of the day, it wasn't my thing.
Backlash are never fun.
I mean, I think that's pretty much the video game marketing in social media in that nutshell, isn't it? Yeah. It's all backlashes and counter backlashes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the discourse. Yeah.
Disaster.
Yeah, Twitter is brainworms. Like, we all know this.
It's absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, did you want to tag yourself in this lineup here? I feel like today I'm feeling kind of young Plague Duke energy. I don't actually have the plague, thankfully. Staying healthy over here, but
Yeah.
It depends.
Scarred.
In the morning, I feel like old king, but then in the evening, when I've woken up a bit, scarred adult king.
Yeah.
Well, I think over the last few weeks I've progressed into fat male, so that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah.
Which one, left or right, 14 or 15?
14 because of the hair color, and that's it, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, it was really interesting to me to see, because I know they did something similar like to this with Stellaris at one point, where they showed some of the very early interfaces on that, and just to see how far it's come for next week or something, we should open up like the first dev diary where they ever showed the 3D characters, like compared to now.
Yeah.
I won't make anybody go running looking for that right now, but
another curveball. Keep you awake.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's terrible.
On your
really,
toes.
Yeah. Delve into those archives. Get all those dev diaries up.
I just want to say as well, like, this artwork is not bad. It is not bad artwork. Like, for the person who drew this, don't take this to mean we're shitting on your work, because we're not. You're clearly a much better artist than I am ever going to be in my entire life.
It just isn't fitting.
Yes.
Right.
And I draw cartoons
like,
for a living.
We all love Father Loris's work, but if we had his character portraits as the characters in CK3, it would be a very different game.
Well, it's like
animate them first.
Yeah, it'd be a lot better because I get paid to do that. So I am a big advocate of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if you look at like the anime portraits mod for CK2, it's very well done. It's very, very well done. I will never use it because I don't find it to be subjectively pleasing.
I find it to be objectively awful.
So
you can beat around the bush and call it subjective all you like. I won't.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Same for the Animu portrait thingamabob thing for EU4. I'm sorry, Groogy, but oh god. No.
Yeah, I was gonna say if Groogy's like listening, my goodness, he's wincing at our anime.
Let's relitigate this art style for Civilization 6 and also just anime in general. Let's get into it. Let's decide if they're good or bad. We're gonna go around the table. No. Yeah.
God, I annoyed Bizaboos last week. I want to annoy anime people this week. I got a tick list.
Well, wait, you just called them Bizaboos, right? But you wouldn't just, use the original Weeaboo. Instead, you anime.
It's overdone,
Yeah.
It's like, also configurable words.
Here we go. Here's from the 7th Dev Diary with the first portraits that they showed us. Before that, we just had some heads.
Yeah, and even that was further along than when I originally saw the game last. Shoot, was that September? That's like almost a year ago now.
It was October.
It was October, you're right, yeah.
And
that was, or it might have been that the article came out in October, the actual physical event was in September, I don't remember.
No,
but
PDXCon was in October.
No, this was before that. See,
you've seen it before.
You keep forgetting about this. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very special.
The clothing, especially on that guy on the far left.
Yeah.
He's wearing a yellow bin bag.
Yeah.
I think that's where most of the improvements have made. I think the hair is a huge improvement, the clothes and the lighting, right?
The clothes have gotten so much better.
We can do a direct comparison because that's Harold Godwinson. And Harold Godwinson is in the previous Dev Diary. Yeah.
Oh.
Harold Godwinson is the second one along.
So did we actually figure out who all these people are finally?
Yes, we did.
Last week's? Okay.
Or rather, I personally am not the one that did. I only got 3 of them correct. But someone did get them all on the forums, and it was confirmed as well.
Okay. You're talking about the one at the very bottom.
He's right at the bottom.
Oh, there you go.
Right before the diseases.
What's it called?
There he is. All right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at that. That is a world of difference, really, isn't it?
So he's number 3?
Yeah, that second guy there is Harold Godwinson. That would be...
Hey, no, that's what we guessed last week, Yeah.
No, the ones that I guessed were the first 3. I guess we did collectively.
Well, I did. But
that one there is the same fella, Harold II Godwinson.
Yeah. I mean, look at that. I mean, even the stance, so much more Godwinson, isn't it? I mean, like...
Right. They made him look in that first picture, he was like way too confident and smug to be Harold Godwinson. And then this one,
he's like, I think I ate something funny.
Yeah.
He looks like a person about to be invaded by 2 very strong, strong people.
He's about to say, do you want to hear the good news or the bad news first?
The good news. We've beaten the Norwegians. The bad news. There's Frenchmen on the coastline. Oh!
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
If you want to put them all up, though, I can tell you who everyone is.
Of this lineup,
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was figured out by a guy called C.N. On the forums. Basically, his working out was the middle guy's a duke, and the rest of them are kings.
Oh, so that is William in the middle, then.
That is indeed William the Bastard. He also figured out the birth years. Basically, obviously, this is in 1066, and then you can figure out when all these people were born and how old they roughly would be.
Okay, so it's Hardrada is the one on the far left, right?
Yes, correct.
Then we got Godwinson. Then we got William
the Bastard.
The fourth one is Svend.
Nope, Svend is the fifth.
Oh, he shaved his beard off. That's right.
Wikipedia says Svend Estridsson was very tall and powerfully built, and we figured out in the last one that tall and powerfully built is actually going to be represented on the character as well.
He is taller than the other guys.
Yes,
yeah.
and he looks like a tank.
He does.
So who's the fourth one then?
Malcolm III Canmore.
Oh, I didn't realize. I never really think of Scotland playing a major role in that conflict. So I wouldn't
Me
have thought
neither.
about
It would never pass my mind at all. And he's also the youngest of them all, being born in 1033.
Okay. Yeah.
The next youngest would be Godwinson at 1022.
Got
he
it.
was born.
Okay.
Estridsson 1019, Hardrada 1015. William's actually 1028, so he'd be the next youngest. So yeah. So from left to right, we've got Hardrada, Godwinson, William the Bastard, Malcolm the Third, and then Svend Estridsson.
Got it. Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean that guy definitely looks smug enough to be Svend. So yeah, I should have figured that out.
You can just tell, even under the cloak and under all of the fineries that he's got on, that guy is built like a brick shit house. He is a tank.
Oh yeah,
and you can definitely tell.
Yeah, for sure. I can picture him like picking up some like underling or messenger by the neck and just holding him up.
Like William?
And scolding him. Yeah.
Just see him grabbing his bastard sword and yelling Leroy Jenkins as he charges into battle.
Nice.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah.
You have to say, look at William the Conqueror's cloak or his shirt, which seems to be about the same design, or it seems to be the exact same design shirt they originally had King Harold in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I will say, even though I'm biased and I will always call him a bastard, in this image, he is literally just the bastard because he hasn't conquered England yet.
Yeah.
So in no reality is he the conqueror in this picture.
No.
He's
just a bastard duke.
Yeah.
I mean, look at like the textures and the lighting on that. I mean, such a huge improvement.
It is.
Yeah.
And the hair. One of the biggest problems I felt with CK2 was there were very few beards that actually looked reasonably decent.
Yeah, especially before Old Gods came out.
Yeah.
Like the original portrait set, there weren't the beard game was weak. Like,
I mean, the beards just came out too far forward. And just it just felt he was wearing a tire around his chin. It just didn't look good.
Well,
that's why I say Old Gods has got some of the best portraits in the game, because they fixed it and they have actually decent facial hair.
And another thing is, here in CK3, that people actually look realistically overweight with the way weight adds. When you, which I got reminded of in a recent video I was doing, my person became obese. And so when they got the fat trait, their face just sort of like weirdly elongated.
Yeah. Because there wasn't actually a 3D model that was like being re-rendered. It was just like they had to warp what was already there and add decals on top of it. So it looks
pretty weird.
That realistic. Yeah. But Yeah, I've mentioned before, I think one of the coolest parts about the portrait system is that you can kind of see that a character who is like a young, strong knight who becomes like, gluttonous in their old age.
Yeah.
Or even if they don't become gluttonous, like you can see them fill out like people actually do as they get older. Like, if you look at if you look at me like when I was 19 versus now, I mean, like you can see that I have more on me than I did CK3, and it's not because I'm a glutton or anything. It's just that's what happens to human beings as they get older. So
it's like this guy.
Not quite that dramatic of a transformation, I don't think, in most of our cases. But I didn't look like a skeleton as a teenager.
No, I don't think I've ever been able to see my ribs.
Maybe you guys commented on this last week when I wasn't here. But doesn't Sky look like that opening character from Aladdin who's telling the story?
He kind of does. I was thinking Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Like I was thinking that.
I was just thinking a garden gnome.
Yeah.
So is he a Sims 4 garden gnome come to bring mischief into the CK3?
Yeah.
And you guys don't get the reference. Okay.
No, I didn't.
Sad. It went right over y'all's head.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Like many things.
Gnomes will move around, will jump around and break things, and you have to appease them on certain holidays in The Sims 4.
Of course.
Wouldn't have got that reference ever.
I had no idea that
free
they
stuff.
had added gnomes to Sims 4. Yeah.
Yeah, you get the whole set. I think we had one every DLC, right?
Yeah, well they've added in free ones. Let's see if I can find there's a nude one that's really just a pixelated block. Oh, they're a treat.
Yeah, pretty good. So it's like a festival. I don't know why this has gone into The Sims, but there's a festival where where gnomes just appear, but you can just go into build mode and sell them for like $3,000. So
yeah,
it's great. Gnomes turn up at your door, you just sell them.
We have both discussion of Scottish dynastic politics and Aladdin fan theories going on in the chat right now, and I like that about our community.
No problems with this whatsoever.
There's all the beautiful gnomes. You've got an Easter bunny, you've got a ghost one, you've got Cthulhu gnome. Naked, there's a briefcase.
See, for me, with gnomes, like what I'm thinking of anytime I think of gnome right now is Scanlan from the first campaign of Critical Role, because I've been binging the shit out of that.
You know what I think of? I get horrible PTSD flashbacks to that achievement in Half-Life Episode 2.
Yeah, where you had to take the garden gnome the whole way through the game. Yeah, I remember that.
I'm trying to jam him into the car as you're driving along the car seat. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Did you wear a gnome costume to go along with him?
I wish.
Anyway, anything else about this week's or last week's Dev Diary, especially Rose, since you weren't here, that you guys want to talk about before we move on a little bit?
For the vanity characters, of course, Hannah shared her vanity character in the at the bottom. I kind of, at the same time, I kind of wish she didn't, and it's also really good to know that she's in there, because I want it to be like I found someone, but then I realized that not everyone is like us and knows all of the individual Paradox staff people. We don't know who'd actually be in the game, so
even
most people wouldn't be able to.
I don't know all of these people.
Oh no, for certain.
Yeah. So
it's going to be. I don't think anyone other than somebody who works for Paradox is actually going to be able to find everyone. But still, it'd be like an achievement kind of thing to find them all.
Yeah,
you can do another video like you did of the Flog Rod.
Oh yeah,
we still don't have that achievement in Imperator. And I know that tweet
still not a thing.
Hit the required numbers.
Did we ever get space unicorns that Wiz promised us in Stellaris?
Yeah, they're what's called the rock people. There's a
that's
unicorn.
Okay. That's supposed to be the space unicorn.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well.
It's like a djinn. They'll give you what you want, but you're not going to get it exactly as you want. Lithoid, that's the one. Thank you, Visme.
Yeah, that's I think that's just how Wiz grants wishes. You're right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wishing Wiz.
Anyway, we also got another dev diary about Southeast Asia in EU4. This time, what's that?
Oh no! I just flipped the dev diary and we were in the middle of it. We weren't at the top. It was very sad.
Oh yeah. This one focusing on Majapahit.
Close enough. I'll take it.
Yeah.
No, I know what it is at this point. I should probably stop leaning on that one Bill Wirtz joke every single time we talk about it. I like this setup and this mission tree a lot because it's an empire in decline, and I love playing empires in decline and just like trying to hold stuff together as it's disintegrating, which is exactly the situation you're going to find yourself in. Timurids are very similar, and I really like that. I really like their flavor for the same reason, that it's like, yeah, you're very powerful on paper, but this stuff could implode at any moment, and you're going to have to be really careful. Yeah, like they get their own disaster at the start of the game that puts you immediately to -3 stability and tanks your legitimacy, and there's all these breakaway states that can happen. They also mentioned they're extending the tributary mechanics. You don't have to be Confucian anymore. I think you just have to be in a certain tech group to use them now. Let me see what they actually directly said about that.
What it should be is, you exist. You can have tributaries. That would be the most realistic.
All nations in the Chinese tech group can now have tributaries regardless of religion. Yeah. I mean, it seems like it should at least be something you could opt into. Like maybe there's a decision you could take at a certain tech level or something that would allow you to have tributaries in another region. But yeah, I would be all for extending it to everybody. I don't see
like I'm being in
being able to fight. Say you're in Europe, right? Yeah, you're playing your France or maybe your Austria, and France is your enemy. You could be fighting over your spheres of influence in Italy. Where there's a bunch of nations in Italy that are giving France a bit of coin as a tributary, and then they'll be defended by France if you go into Italy. And you could fight France to take away those tributary nations and have them give tribute to you instead. And that could be the back and forth that is kind of missing in EU4 right now, because any war you have is just, I'm just going to take your land. Instead of, I want to expand my sphere of influence to have these people look up to me instead of look up to you. It's just, The Byzantines gave tribute to the Ottomans for a very, very long time to prevent the Ottomans from murdering and slaughtering and conquering them. And then they did it anyway. But at the same time,
And like the step hordes should definitely get it, because like if you're a step horde, if I'm playing as the Great Horde, and I reform the Golden Horde or something, like I'll conquer all of Poland, Lithuania's steppe provinces, but I might not be interested in their forests or their farmlands. So it's like, all right, you guys can still live there, just pay me money. Like that's kind of how.
I think that's already in the game, I believe. Like I think steppe hordes always get tributaries no matter what.
Oh, do they? Okay, if they already do, then I just haven't played a steppe horde in long enough to know that, but that's good. Yeah.
So Rabid Bogling says that could be a government reform. I got a better idea. If you're a higher government rank, so an empire can request tribute from a kingdom can request tribute from a duchy, and a duchy can request tribute from, county's not a thing, is it?
Yeah.
No.
Takarva is mentioning that kind of what you're describing is how vassals are supposed to work in Europe, where diplomacy was conducted differently than the Far East.
They really don't, though.
But there were cases like you're talking about where the Ottomans were not, or the Byzantines were not an Ottoman vassal, but they did pay tribute to the Ottoman Sultan. Yep. So I think it would probably make sense to have both of those available. I don't know. It's
Or available if certain conditions are met.
Yeah.
So
bilateral treaties. Oh my goodness, yeah. That would be fantastic. Bilateral peace treaties.
Back to our lovely dev diary. That elephant is massive on that island.
That is, that's like he barely has room to turn around on that island there. Yeah.
He ate his spices.
He did. He got some cloves and he's just been munching down on those. The other really interesting mission they get is you have to blockade the entire coast of China.
Which ruins something China. That really ruins them.
Yeah, it adds a permanent modifier increasing your naval morale, blockade efficiency, and blockade impact on siege. I feel like it would be easier to do this by just like splitting pieces off of Ming and then blockading what was left. Like actually having a large enough navy to fight their navy and blockade all of their coastal provinces would be extremely expensive.
There's a mission there called Enforced Loyalty. Oh, go on. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm saying, but they have all those lovely spices to pay for that fleet.
True.
Indeed.
And and that trade node is incredibly powerful.
And they mentioned that there was going to be something in the mission tree. I think they said they couldn't talk about it yet. That's going to make it easier for you to colonize provinces in the Spice Islands if you're playing as
that'd be nice.
Majapahit.
My goodness.
Colonization in that region, with most of it, like especially Borneo being like jungle. Although Borneo won't be needed to be colonized anymore. They've filled out the south really, but there's so many jungles.
That's a big thing I'm worried about because more colonization by the East Asians means less colonization from the Europeans. So if Europeans don't get a foothold in the Far East, that's it. They're out of that region. You're not going to see Dutch East Indies and stuff,
You can still conquer it or charter a company. We've talked before about the problems with the charter company and mechanics also, as they stand. But
conquering distant colonies now as Europeans, especially with the attrition on ships.
That's why Marines need to be a thing that everyone can use.
Yeah, it really. I've been having a lot of trouble with that in my Brittany game that I'm doing on Twitch right now. Is that if you don't have Marines and you need to ship troops to the East Indies, it's like you're going to lose half your army. But like I lost half my army just getting them to South Africa so that they could rest and replenish their numbers before we set sail for the East Indies. And then by the time I got there, I had lost half of the army again.
I feel like that's why you need ports all along the way so you can dip into a port at every single monthly tick.
And like that by itself, I'm not as bothered by. It's mainly that Marines use sailors instead of regular manpower. And if you're in the late game and you have a fleet that is built up to your force limit and you're protecting trade and doing all the things you should be doing with that fleet, like I have built dry docks and governor's mansions in every place that I can have them, and I still never have enough sailors. I can lower taxes on all of my colonial nations and press all of their sailors into service, and I still don't have enough sailors. Like there needs to be. I'm playing tall, which is part of the problem. Like I only have so many provinces in Europe. There probably needs to be another way to get sailors, because it's not that I don't know how to use Marines or that I don't want to use Marines. It's that it feels like no matter how many things I do to get more sailors, I just never have the capacity for it.
Just go land in other people's coastal ports and go to visit their taverns and press some of their people and put them on your ship of sailors.
Yeah, see, that would be great. If I could just like land like a force of Marines in like a neutral country and just like click a button that just like steals a bunch of their people, puts them into my sailors pool, and then gives me like a -50 relations penalty with them. That would be great.
Yeah, I
could just sail around, sail down to Mali, press a bunch of like Malian, traders, and be like, all right, you're in the Navy now. Okay, bye. Say bye to your families.
If you do it enough times, it gives them a casus belli. Like think the War of 1812.
Yeah, I mean that should be a CB immediately.
Also, I think Marines are too weak too. That's the thing. Is it a fire damage bonus or shock damage?
They take more. They take more shock damage, which makes them not great in the early game, but by the late game doesn't matter that much.
That's the other thing. So, like in the early game, they're not very good because of the shock damage thing. And then in the late game, you can get Marine cannons. So late game, they don't have the firepower anyway. You have to bring down like ordinary cannons to help with them. Yeah, and then it's just the infantry, and you get the debarkation penalty from the normal cannons anyway. So,
Oh, Aslan's mentioning also shipboarding. That would be cool if there was like a mission that you could put your fleet on that's like privateering, but we're stealing sailors instead of stealing money.
Yeah. Well, what you're asking for there is basically what the North Africans get, where they raid your coasts. They get money and they get sailors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Feels like
maybe that can be the finisher for naval ideas. Maybe.
Yeah, I think we're onto something here. Someone get Groogy on the phone.
Yep. Where's Groogy? Well, we know Groogy listens to this later, so Groogy, take notes, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Frantic scribbling. Oh, he's
Groogy's on vacation, but he frantically podcasts on vacation.
Yeah.
I mean,
scribble on a bar napkin or something.
Yeah.
This town to listen to it. He can totally just be like, let me download this podcast and I'll listen to it on the plane or on the train or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to point out as well. That mission there in enforced loyalty, about halfway down over on the left-hand side. That mission will change all of your tributaries into vassals when you take it.
Yeah.
That could
very powerful.
Definitely be powerful. I can also see it as a massive double-edged sword because you can get some tributary chains going a very long way. And if you then just immediately turn them all into vassals, you could end up having quite a few more vassals than you can actually handle.
Well, unless you grab the shogunate.
Unless you're the shogun, or the Holy Roman Emperor, sure. But
get onto get the shogunates, and then get all the tributaries you want, and then click that button. Power, you got 8 billion tributaries.
Okay, Spiff. But I feel like that's a double-edged sword right there. It could be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how technically difficult this would be to implement, but I feel like the best way to handle that might be instead of having it automatically turn all your tributaries into vassals, it gives you access to a diplomatic interaction where you can manually turn a tributary above a certain opinion threshold into a vassal or something like that. I like having multiple steps of subsidiaries that you can slowly kind of integrate them more and more over time.
This whole mission tree seems it's obviously very, very subject focused because you can turn all your tributaries into vassals, but there's also you get the ability to just have subjugation CBs against everyone with Malay culture in the Malay culture group. So that's like the vast majority of Indonesia. Like the Spice Islands is mostly that culture group, so you're just going to be able to vassalize all of them incredibly easily.
Yeah.
I guess that's pretty much how, pre-fall Majapahit worked anyway, so I guess it makes sense, but it's interesting. And also, Porch of Mecca, I love this one because it lets you use the propagate religion trade policy. At the moment, only Muslim nations are able to use that, which I think is a ridiculous limitation. Everyone should be able to use it. Because, how did half of Africa become Christian? Propagate religion, trading. Yeah, that way. But the Hindus are going to be able to use it now if you're Majapahit.
I agree with you fundamentally. I do also like that they differentiate. They've gone to a lot of lengths to differentiate how the different religions play in EU4, so it's not, like the same thing every time. But I think that, like, if Christians aren't going to get that mechanic, then they need to make, like, the monastic orders from Golden Century more accessible. Because you can, like, if you're playing as Spain or Portugal, you can use the Jesuits to do that. But like randomly, other Catholic nations who just aren't in the Iberian Peninsula for some reason can't ever get access to those. So it's like, that's weird. That part I would like, I'm okay if Catholics have a different set of mechanics for accomplishing that same goal, but they need to be more accessible to more different Catholic nations. And then, like if you're playing as Majapahit, which is a Hindu nation, if they're not going to propagate religion as a trade policy, they should have some other cool, unique way for them to do basically the same thing. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. Yeah.
I like that, the nations work differently, the different religions work differently. I just think that some things that aren't religion specific that have been made religion specific in the goal of making them play differently. And I think that's just a misstep.
Yeah, or it could be a sort of thing where if you start with the religion that did this historically, you start out with it. If you start out as a religion that did not have this specific thing or was not as engaged in this specific thing historically, you can still get it, but maybe it's a little harder. Maybe you have to take a certain government reform or something.
Not government reform. It could be the... what are they called? When you've got you filled out 2 idea groups, you get the thing that puts them together. Policies. It can be the religion or trade policy.
Yeah.
You need religion and you need trade. If you've got them both, you can propagate religion now if you turn on this policy.
Or make it a church doctrine for Protestants or something like that. Yeah. Like that's how you do it. Like make it available to Muslims from the start. Make it a church policy for Protestants, and then give all Catholics access to the religious orders. Like, that would go a long way towards making it more accessible, I think. But anything else about the CU4 diary before we move right on along here?
Just one more thing. I pronounce it Majapahana Heat.
Okay.
All
right. I'm very, I'm proud of you for sharing that with us, and we respect you. So,
before we go on, speaking of ridiculous pronunciations of various things, I was playing as the Yellow Nation in India, and I didn't know how to pronounce it. And I had somebody in that one, I was going to get to that. And I had a guy in chat who was like, "Oh, I am Indian. This is how you pronounce it." And he said it's literally pronounced vaginagar. And to this day, I still don't know whether to trust him because he is, like, I know him otherwise. I know he is Indian, but I know he's also a massive troll. So he might just have wanted me to say vagina a lot. I don't know.
I think it is. I think it is actually as pronounced.
Is that? Let's hang on. I'm going to do some research here.
I don't want to look it up because it's like, it would spoil the magic.
Okay. All right. I will keep it a secret, but let's see.
Because I was initially pronouncing it as Vijayanagar. And he's like, "Nah, mate, it's just pronounced Vijayanagar." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Pretty sure.
If you say so.
I've got an actual Indian pronouncing this word, and I'll post it in chat. But Lambert, if you want it to be a secret for all time, you don't have to click on it.
Nah, click on it. So let's listen.
Yeah.
It
sounds.
He was
Vijayanagar is what it sounds like to me.
Here, I'll play it on the podcast real quick.
Hullboard is also Indian, and he's saying Vijayanagar is how you would say it. Yeah.
Okay.
That basically sounded like what the guy was saying.
It's actually P Russia, not Prussia.
I think I believe what Chloe, who is. If you guys ever watched any of the old Loresworn videos, she was on a lot of those. She speaks Russian, and I think the way she explained it to me is that it's literally po Russia, like it means next to Russia, is where the name Prussia comes from.
I don't know if that's true, because Prussia as an area that was named that, like from Preußen, that existed before the Rus did. I don't know if I buy that one.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe somebody from Russia or Prussia could could verify that.
Or both if you live in Kaliningrad.
Yeah, exactly. It's true, isn't it? I mean, it is next to Russia, technically. In that strange bit of Russia that's a bit weird. It's over there.
Anyway, we also have some other. Let's see, Valargain. Oh yeah, Valargain. Right, Valargain was actually born in Russia but has no idea. So that's yeah. So I mean, I know Russia as like a united nation only existed after the Mongols, but the
Kievan
people who
predate it.
The people who lived in the area we think of as Prussia were called Prussians before that, like before the Germans got there. So I don't know. But Valargain's saying, I think it's a quirk of translation. Russia in Russian sounds nothing like Prussia. Yeah, so maybe it's just one of those things where the pronunciations lined up because they sounded similar to somebody who didn't speak the language. But
yeah, P actually means not. It's Russia and not Russia.
Miracle Tortoise is saying we don't know the root of Prussia, which I would totally buy.
Yeah.
A lot of those.
The Templars, they didn't take notes.
Yeah.
I don't care about your heathen beliefs.
Limos is saying Prussia is a Latinization of a local name for the region, with its origins unclear, apparently. I mean, there's nobody that speaks Old Prussian around anymore, so could be coming from the Old Prussian word for black swamp.
Judging by the terrain in the area, I can buy it.
Bucktown Enterprises. What did I just walk into?
Etymology.
I'll tell you later.
How did if Prussia's filled with swamps? How do they get so good at making cannons? Like, what's that about?
Drain the swamp first, mate.
Drain the swamps are meant to make cannons. That's why they did it.
Yeah. Well, I believe the actual reason that they called themselves Prussia was because it was a way to get around the fact that the Holy Roman Emperor had said there could be no more kings in the Holy Roman Empire, so they called themselves the kings in Prussia because Prussia, like the region of Prussia, was not part of the Holy Roman Empire, even though Brandenburg was. I'm not like super up to date on early modern German history. But
NoCB stands for no continual banter. Yes, all the tangents.
Yes.
Thank you, Rabid Boggling.
Should we move on to humankind?
Podcasts that don't have tangents in them. I mean, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you watch those kind of podcasts? Inferior, clearly.
Yeah. Miracle Tortoise, they were kings in Prussia rather than of Prussia. So when they were in Prussia, they were kings. When they were in Brandenburg, they weren't kings. So you cross into the Habsburg domain and you're not allowed to call yourself a king now. But when you go back home to Prussia, then as soon as you walk across this line, then the emperor will recognize you as a king. But, if you're on our side of the line, we're not going to recognize you as a king.
Right up until the point where you become strong enough that Austria can sit and swivel.
Yeah. And that was called the Austro-Prussian War.
Indeed.
And didn't go well for Austria.
No, Silesia. So. That was the gain in that one.
All right, speaking of, kings and people that didn't actually really have kings, is that they were defined by Europe. We have some new nations in humankind that were released this week.
Yeah.
Right.
And last week.
Right. Yeah, so the Haudenosaunee, which if you went to school in North America, you probably know them as the Iroquois. Also, if you're an EU4 player, you probably know them as the Iroquois. The Haudenosaunee is what they would have called themselves, I believe.
If you're British, you know them as our great allies against the perfidious Yanks.
Yep.
It was actually a confederacy of multiple tribes. This is also if you've played Assassin's Creed 3, which I don't necessarily recommend, the main character is a Haudenosaunee native. their form of government actually directly influenced the United States Constitution because it had some sort of democratic egalitarian ideas in it, and the idea of having like these multiple states that were part of a confederation that worked together was actually influential on early colonial thinkers. So they're sort of one of the grandparents of the American Republic.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Didn't treat them particularly well. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, yeah.
It's like one of those grandparents
very well.
Forget the birthday off.
Yeah.
And with the
Valor Gain's pointing out they were also matriarchal. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, they had a system where like the women were in charge in times of peace, and then they would elect a war chief during times of war who was a guy, but that was like specifically...
That sounds correct. I remember there is one of the Native American tribes did that. I don't remember which one, but it does sound right that it was these guys.
Halbort's asking when were they wiped out, which is an unfortunate but fair question. There are actually still Haudenosaunee people around today.
And there's still reservations. Yeah. They were the Trail of Tears. There were quite a number.
Yeah,
so they exist now in, is it the Midwest now they exist? Where was the Trail of Tears go to?
No.
It was mostly Oklahoma was the end point, but I don't know specifically enough about their specific circumstances to know when they were made to leave and where they were actually sent. Valorgain posted a link in chat to the Haudenosaunee Confederacy's actual website, so that's a good source to check. Rather than a bunch of white people on a podcast talking about it.
Yes.
Probably look and see what they have to say about themselves.
I can just say with certainty that there are Native American or Indian, whichever. That's a whole debate as well, even among people of the tribes and ethnicities on which one is the proper term.
Yeah.
But there are reservations on the East Coast, though most of them are in the center of the U.S. and on the West Coast.
Got you.
Well, West Coast, Great Plains area, where TJ's hanging out.
Rabbit Bogling's also pointing out that they introduced us to lacrosse. So
that's true.
That's
the only reason I know that is a sport is because I think one of the American Pie movies. Otherwise, would never clue.
Yeah, we have it in certain schools in the U.S. have lacrosse teams, especially I think more out east. So.
Mean Girls has one of the girls playing lacrosse at the end, I think.
That might have been it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some American movie that's incredibly forgettable.
Mean Girls is not forgettable.
It is when I've got a terrible memory.
Okay. Point.
Mean Girls is a masterpiece, I'll have you know.
And it's been some 10 years since I've watched it, at least.
Should watch it every year.
No.
Yeah.
I'm okay, thank you.
I wouldn't say most. I'm sorry, I'm responding to Halbert here, saying that pre-Columbus, most natives lived in the East Coast. There are different tribes. A lot of Native Americans lived in the Great Plains area. Thing is, they didn't have regular settlements. They'd move, follow the buffalo or what other animal they were hunting, and so you would have let's say 100 people would need 100 square miles to live on, example. When on the East Coast, because of the difference in foliage, animal life, sea life, people could live much closer together, so it's a much more densely populated area.
I will say as well, there's got to be a case that when Europeans arrived, we came from the East. We encountered the tribes that lived on the east, and we saw that there were plenty of them because they hadn't been completely devastated by smallpox yet. Smallpox got to the west coast before Europeans did.
Exactly, and there were dense areas of settlement, in the Great Lakes region as well. Cahokia is a big archaeological site that is in what is now, I think, Illinois or Indiana. I think it's Illinois. Where they found these giant mounds. So there were definitely large permanent settlements that rose and fell that were not part of the East Coast. In Colorado, and also, as you get more further southwest, we have cliff dwellers, and we have the Pueblo peoples, and the Navajo and the Zuni and the Hopi. On the West Coast, you had a lot of permanent or semi-permanent villages. So yeah, there were definitely large populations of sedentary farming North Americans in places other than the East Coast before the settlers got here.
And
I didn't realize that smallpox got there before, which suggests a huge amount of trade going up and down the coast. Then I imagine.
Yeah.
Who knows the story of the Pilgrims and Native Americans, and that's why we have Thanksgiving in the U.S. and that's a whole kettle of fish. But one thing that they never really touch on when they're teaching this story to elementary school students is that the reason the Pilgrims could communicate with the Native American tribe was because one of the guys living in the tribe had actually been over to England and spoke fluent English because he'd been taken off sort of as a slave and then ended up back home, and his whole village was destroyed. It was dead. They'd all died to disease while he was gone. And that's actually where the Pilgrims settled, was in his old home village.
That's pretty nasty, actually.
Yeah. And there's also a not an article, a journal entry that I saw back in high school, I think, that talked about some white guy sailing up the coast of North America and commenting that it was so densely populated that there were as many people as trees, and how he didn't think they could ever make a settlement. It would be too dangerous. And then smallpox arrived.
Yeah.
Is it something like 90% got wiped out?
Yeah, there are multiple schools of thought on that. I think the one that has the most compelling evidence is what's called the big number theory, which is basically that the number of natives who were actually in North America before Europeans showed up is far larger than we believed for many, many years, and that the number killed by smallpox is closer to 90%. So
and if you're curious as to why North and South America did not have terrible disease like smallpox, there's a great CGP Grey video about that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll post some sources in the comments if people want to look into this. I noticed some people in chat are talking about the differences between why there are more people who appear to have native ancestry in Central and Latin America than in North America, which is very much the different ways that different nations, colonists treated them.
Yeah, I'm not sure everybody? I fully agree with it.
Yeah. Or are we going to move them on to a mission and make them Christian, and then there's
the way the Spanish and the Portuguese treated the natives was very different from the way the English and the French treated the natives, and the English and the French treated the natives very differently as well because of how they approached using the New World for resources.
Right.
It's,
but anyway,
we could do a whole podcast on that and still not really touch on it.
It's really interesting. I mean, I don't know anything about it. I mean, I'm woefully ignorant about First Nation peoples and in America.
I can help a little bit with that. A channel that I really rate highly on YouTube is Historia Civilis. He does a lot of stuff with Rome, which certainly tickles my fancy quite a bit. But he also did a really good video on the Iroquois Confederacy, basically looking at how the fuck it worked, because it's so different to quite a lot of what we have as in politics nowadays. So I recommend you go watch that one if you want to know more about the the Iroquois.
Haudenosaunee, one. So I would recommend, again, they still don't sponsor me, even though I plug them on literally everything I'm on, pretty much. The Great Courses has a lecture on native peoples of North America that you can get with an Audible credit if you have an Audible subscription, by Professor Daniel Cobb. That's a really, really good starting place. But also go to websites like that Haudenosaunee thing or Confederacy official website that Valargain linked, because these people know more about their history and can speak more intelligently about their history than we can. So, Yeah, so they're long way of saying their unique unit. They have is an irregular warfare specialist because by the time colonizers showed up, that was kind of what you had to do as a North American tribe if you wanted to be successful.
Guerrilla warfare sort of thing.
Yeah, and then they have the Three Sisters Field, which was a fairly ingenious piece of agricultural technology. This is something that Daniel Cobb points out in his, if you listen to that lecture series, is that we think of North American natives as being, not as technologically advanced as the colonizers were, or at least that's kind of how it's taught to us. But they had things like this Three Sisters Field that were like, oh, this is technology. Like, it's not made of metal. Yeah, it's not made of metal, but it is. We figured out how to put these three plants together and make more food. So that is a technology.
Almost as if different peoples who, have different histories develop technology differently, and come up with different ideas.
Exactly.
So the agricultural system of, native peoples anywhere in the world, is going to be different from the European idea of
we learned things about agriculture, just like they learned things about how to use guns from us. So yeah,
exactly.
I mean, the way that the Incas did their agriculture, the stepped fields, that shit's way more advanced than what we had. We just didn't need to do that in Europe. But the ability to even get that started is that's incredible.
And look at the city of Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
The feats it took to build and keep that running.
And the tribes in the Pacific Northwest, they had ways of they could basically husband the salmon runs, the natural paths of the salmon migrations, and produce more food per square acre or whatever than European farming could, or more protein per square acre. I'd have to look up what the actual stat was, but there was quite a bit of technology. It's just not technology that makes you really good at conquering the world, which is what we were kind of preoccupied by at the time.
It's also just a different perception. It's coming at agriculture from a different angle. But other nations do a similar sort of thing. Yeah. You look at Africans and people in the Far East, and even people in the Spice Islands. They have a completely different. They develops completely different agricultural techniques to Europeans. Yep. Doesn't mean it's less technologically advanced in the end.
Yeah, technology and intelligence are all contextually sensitive to your surroundings.
Exactly.
That is,
Exactly.
Well, the other civ that they announced, I think Rose can speak somewhat more about, which is the Joseon, I think.
Yeah, Joseon, which is actually the name of the dynasty and the time period in Korean history, which this was the last time period, the last dynasty before what we kind of know as modern Korea came about. And actually the latest Joseon emperor, or who would have been the last Joseon emperor, descended from the family, I think he's living in Japan. So this is actually kind of recent history on one end.
It is the early modern era. So who were these who were the Joseon within the context of Korean history?
They were what made Korea into how Koreans self-identify today. We've had previous, if you played Civ 6 Korea is based on the Three Kingdoms period, the Shilla Kingdom, which is where we get the word Korea, Goryeo, was one of the Three Kingdoms. But it was like comparing your, Father Loris or Lambert here decided to compare themselves to the pre-1066, pre-William the Conqueror English.
Have you seen my profile picture?
Okay. You're English, but culturally, they're very, very far away from you. When it's much closer culturally to after the Norman invasion and the melding of the...
Well, I'm Welsh to start with, so it's certainly a lot different.
And I'm from the north. The south very much identifies with William the Bastard. The north very much identifies with pre-William.
Saxons.
but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Sorry, just don't call me English again, please.
To the point where, I'm sorry, I meant British. I'm sorry, Photos. I know you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, William oppressed both Welsh and English people.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Harold Godwinson was actually married to a Welsh woman, I believe.
Yeah.
Poor guy. I mean,
she was also before that married to a Welsh prince, and then he got killed by Harold Godwinson.
Yeah.
Morgan Lillywin wrote a really good book about her. Sorry, off topic.
Okay.
But actually, like the Joseon period is still. It's basically what Japan tried to wipe out when they took over Korea, to the point where there's actually that's the wrong picture. This picture. Sorry, it's really small. Let me fix that. This is a palace in Seoul that was actually torn down by Japan. And they're rebuilding it now.
Oh, fantastic.
When I was there, it was massive, and they're still rebuilding more.
But it's something that people don't really know enough about, really. But the amount of cultural destruction that happened under the Japanese occupation of Korea is staggering. Oh my goodness. Like, the amount of buildings that were destroyed, the amount of the effort the Japanese put in to stomp out Korean culture and basically make Korea into an extension of Japanese. It's really bad. Really, really bad. People should know more about it.
Yep. This is a Gyeongbokgung Palace. It's massive. It's got ponds. It's got gardens. It's if you've ever walked around Hampton Court, it's bigger than that, with all the gardens and stuff included.
Yeah.
And that's just one building. It's huge. A lot of these buildings were torn down. And the Joseon period is still how Koreans view traditional dress. The hanbok, if you see a traditional Korean dress, which actually I got married in a traditional Korean outfits.
It's so cool. Fair play. It's really.
And that is, you said that is like a Joseon thing, right?
Yeah,
like
this
that
is
particular garment. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a noble's wedding.
You can tell how unique it is too. I mean, Korea is in a kind of tricky spot geographic wise, right? I mean, it's next to this giant economic and cultural behemoth of China. And later on, after the Meiji Restoration, basically was dominated by Japan and occupied for Japan for a long period of time.
And actually,
to retain such a beautiful, unique culture, it's quite a feat.
For the most part, Korea actually used the Chinese letter writing system until it was King Sejong during the Joseon period who had Hangul created, which Hangul, if you don't know, is a phonetic alphabet that's actually easier to learn than English.
Yeah, I mean, you really can learn it in a day. Like the sounds, at least you can learn it in a day.
Yep. The complex vowels are a little difficult just because they have some that we just don't use in English.
Oh yeah.
But you can still sort of get close enough to at least sound out enough that the cashier will go, "Oh, yeah, that's what you want over there," basically.
Yeah, you might not have any idea what you're actually saying, but yeah, it is of all of the world's written scripts, it's one of the easiest to learn for foreigners for sure. Yeah. I tried to. I got most of the way through teaching.
Let me tell you.
Well, back when I used to watch a lot of esports, I tried to teach myself some of the symbols, and I can remember some of them, probably not all of them, but yeah, it is striking how kind of consistent it is, especially compared to English, where it's trying to guess what any combination of two vowels together is going to sound like in English it's just basically roulette. So
it's like rules, isn't it? So the lettering, is that right? So you can work out phonetically what each letter is, and you can speak it out loud. You may not know the meaning, but you can actually work out the phonetics from a language. Is that right? Or have I got that completely wrong?
Basically, yeah. I'll show y'all.
Didn't someone sit down and basically invent the language too? It was like somebody just went.
That was King Sejong. There's actually a gigantic statue in front of so that palace I showed y'all. There's a long road that leads up to it that's got a big statue of King Sejong. King Sejong in the middle of it, and there's a museum underneath. It's a pretty cool place. But here,
I'd still love to go sometime. Yeah,
it's really cool.
I recently had a look. There was a thing on Twitter where what was the furthest northeast, south, and west that you've been in the world? My most easternly place that I've been to is Cyprus. So, I haven't been to Korea. Not even close.
Yeah,
I've never been to Korea.
I think the furthest east I've been is probably Stockholm. Yeah, because I've never even been to like Poland or anywhere in Eastern Europe. So yeah, it's probably Stockholm.
Well, if you want to go just a smudge further, then you can come visit me anytime.
Well, I used to work in Mongolia and China, so like that's Mongolia is kind of a similar kind of situation, I guess. Also dominated by China, but then they were dominated by Russia rather than dominated by Japan for a long period of time.
That's right, yeah.
So the language in Mongolia Mongolian was a unique script. People in Mongolia, officials used Chinese for a long period of time. And now it's mainly Cyrillic from Russians.
Oh, here's one from chat. From Miracle Tortoise. I want both of the Americans to try and read that word first. And then I guess we'll correct you.
I would say Lobra.
No.
That's good.
Rose, how would you pronounce that?
Lobro.
How do you pronounce it?
Well, me?
Yeah.
Oh, Loughborough, isn't it? Of course.
Yeah, Loughborough.
Oh, so it's one of those where GH turns into an F.
Yeah.
Our language is not written phonetically at all.
No,
it doesn't make any sense.
which I was just going to show something real quick about.
Yeah.
This is how well designed Hangul was. This is like banana because they took the word banana and they just used the English version banana. But each of these is a block of a syllable. So it's very easy to figure out how to pronounce something. You know where each syllable ends. And it's always going to be a consonant at the front, followed by a vowel.
Got it.
You can even, let's see.
Interesting.
And for those listening to the podcast, you just have to imagine, but it is actually, really intuitive. It's, really, really good.
I'm terrible at spelling things. But
I'll tell you what, as a dyslexic, I wish all languages were like this.
Well, this is love set on.
I do love the history of stuff. Especially, we got a kind of boring history of the Latin-based alphabet, but Chinese letters, they look like what historically things are. For example, I think the symbol for being rich looks like a pig in a house. Because if you're rich, you've got a pig in your house, which is great. There's loads of history behind all these little symbols and stuff.
Yeah,
I like that. But
that's one of the cool things about the ideographic languages versus phonetic languages. Yeah,
but an actual rational, interesting language like that, like Korean, it's a lot easier, a lot better.
It was planned. It was a planned language, and I don't see it, but I do know that a lot of the letter shapes are based on the shape that your tongue makes when you're saying that sound.
Oh,
interesting.
That would be a really interesting
It doesn't make sense to me, but I know that really helps some people learn it.
That's pretty cool. It's kind of like the metric system of languages, really, isn't it?
So, hands up, everyone who's listening, who's just moved around their tongue in their mouth into different shapes, trying to make letters.
There's a lot of circles in Korean, so I don't know what you're supposed to do with that.
Ton of snakes.
You just sort of windmill it around as you're speaking.
And what's also interesting is that while King Sejong made Hangul and he was trying to make literacy easier to the masses and also separate them from China a bit, it was not at all popular because the nobility didn't want people to be able to read more easily because that, let them escape their control because Korea did have slavery during the Joseon period.
Yeah.
You weren't
Interesting.
You weren't born into slavery, but they had slavery, if that makes sense. It wasn't. Yeah. It was a different system than what we think of here in the West.
Yeah.
Was it a similar sort of indentured sort of slavery like China then, or was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of the things that distinguishes the Atlantic slave trade more than anything is that you were born into an artificially created racial category that you could never escape from, that designated you based on purely on your physical appearance as a slave, whereas most other forms of slavery historically didn't work like that. So.
No, serfdom. You were born into slavery under serfdom, I guess.
Right, but like if I'm a serf and I'm French and I dress up like a king and I go walking around saying that I'm a member of nobility, you can't like point at my face and go, no, you're not, you're a slave. And that's race-based slavery was very specifically set up to have that form of, okay, you can never actually be integrated into free society.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. In fact, that was something people did, didn't they? They used to run in, like, serfs used to escape into the towns and then become like, basically slaves on the run. And I think after a while, if you stayed in a town for long enough, you became a free citizen. At least that was true in
a year and a
Saxon
day
England.
or something.
Yeah, and like the Vikings, if you were a thrall that got brought back on a Viking raid and you like married a free person, you could become free, or your kids could become free. That like usually there was a path to freedom of some sort.
Which didn't exist in the Atlantic.
Yeah, race-based slavery was specifically set up so that there was never a path to freedom.
Yeah, apart from
which that is
revolution. Shout out to the
one.
Haitians.
Japan did a lot of negative things when they took over South and North Korea when they took over Korea. One of the positive things they did, though, was eliminating slavery.
Yeah. That was I think that was one of the pretexts they kept using. It's similar to the British Empire in a lot of ways. Like a lot of a lot of the things.
Who do you think they learned from?
Yes, definitely.
We've done an awful lot of shit. Really lots and lots of shit, as have the Japanese, but we also did do some good stuff when it came to slavery. That's another term that really needs context before I say it out loud again. But,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the
British pretext for the scramble for Africa was to eliminate slavery, with a lot of exploitation on the side.
Yeah.
That's basically what the British did.
Yeah. The British during the 1800s can basically be summed up as, we spent a fuck ton of money getting rid of slavery and eliminating the Atlantic slave trade.
Yeah.
And I think also that is something that
lots of colonies on the way.
We did lots of shit. We did some good shit too. Basically.
You're right.
What can you tell us about the Joseon unique bonuses in Humankind, Rose?
Well, we have the Goboksun, which I clarified with my husband on how to pronounce that before our podcast started, who is Korean, which we also often know as turtle ships. Because they look kind of like turtles. They were armored over. Think of them as early versions of ironclads.
And they wrecked the Japanese.
Oh, yes, they did.
In the Imjin War, 1592. Destroyed them. Absolutely insane.
If you haven't seen the Extra History video series on Admiral Yi, I would highly recommend that. He was a very interesting guy.
I think there's also a historical film.
There you go.
There's also a historical film that history...
who's done a good stuff on it. Sorry.
I think there's also a historical film that history buffs evaluated and said was pretty darn good about Admiral Yi. But he's taught as a hero in Korea, just like King Sejong.
Yeah, too right. He's like, he's like the Nelson of Korea, really, isn't he? As far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
I just love the first comment under this video I just linked from Kings and Generals. Admiral Yi was reportedly suffering immense back pain later on for carrying the whole Korean nation with no help. Oh god! But yeah, his ship kill count was insane, like something like 130 to 0.
Yeah,
absolutely insane. The turtle ship. Yeah, it's definitely the right emblematic unit to use for them.
Yeah,
but I mean, these ships are the reason that Japan didn't conquer Korea a lot earlier.
Yeah, I mean, they went in 1592 and got thrown right the fuck back into the sea.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, and if you did play Civ 5, then the King Sejong is the ruler of Korea in Civ 5, which wasn't actually in the game when it came out. That came with one of the expansions.
Yeah, was it? I don't remember which expansion it was, but yeah, they were fun in Civ 5.
Mm-hmm. And then we also powerful. Here we have the Sail one, which is an educational institute. It promoted education, and it was using Confucianism ideas of a sort, because Confucianism is very big in Korea.
Yeah. Well, it's, I mean, like, I think the Seiwon is basically, they took the Chinese Confucian academies and basically turned it up to 11, didn't they? I mean, they were like, you know, they were Confucian academies, but, you know, just about in every single way, better, more inclusive, you know, had better educational standards, and also a much larger.
As for Humankind, how did it feel compared to Civ? We're going to talk more about that next week when we actually have someone from Humankind here on the podcast, so tune in then.
Yeah, Cat and Nine Tails was in chat earlier. I don't know if they're still around.
I believe TJ has an article he published about his thoughts on Humankind.
Yeah, let me see if I can find
that.
And then Lambert, really quick, if
Lambert and I have YouTube videos.
Indeed.
Yeah. I'll make sure to put them in the show notes too if you're listening to this later.
And Father Loris made the What If video with his beautiful artwork.
Yeah. So we'll be talking more about Humankind next week for sure.
Yeah. And also participate in the What's If competition, because it's really good and there's great rewards, and you can get
also sign up for the Open Dev.
Yeah.
Sign up for Open Dev.
Yes.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of the entries that have been coming out of that contest are really funny.
Absolutely.
I've been enjoying following them a lot.
Oh my goodness, like just seeing like some of the like comics made by other people. I mean, the amount of creative flourishing that is happening is I love it. I love all this creativity being
you're basically wonderful. Use my art and make funny things with it, so I don't have to for a little while.
But also, you know, use your own art too. I just love seeing other people's art styles. There's somebody here on Twitter. I don't know if I can find it. Name is Chichi. Basically made 2 comics in a lovely like you know, watercolor style. Is beautiful. Go check those out. Very, very good. They've been retweeted on the Humankind Twitter.
I will go and look for those now.
Before we get out of here, I did want to talk about, we're not going to have much time to talk about it, but the dev blog that came out from Creative Assembly today that kind of gave us an update on where all of the Total War games are at, had some really awesome stuff in it for like every current Total War game. There's something in here that I'm very excited about. Total War Troy, which isn't out yet, quite yet, but I have played a little bit of it. They announced, I think they had already announced the Amazon's DLC, which is really, really cool. I like that they're being included as a faction. Also, that they're eventually going to add Artemis as another member of the Pantheon you can worship. I felt like she was one of the biggest omissions from the build that I played. And then Ajax, we're getting Ajax as part of the first DLC, which he's objectively like the coolest person in the Trojan War. So, you know, you gotta get Ajax in there. Achilles stands, move aside. It's my boy Ajax.
Imagine being felled by a blow to your ankle.
Yeah, imagine. Yeah, I mean, Achilles is just an emo boy. He's a strong emo boy who eats his vegetables. Odysseus is great too. Valor Gain, I will say Odysseus is my second favorite, but Ajax is number one.
Can I say about the Amazons?
Yeah.
One of the things about Troy with the thing that I still really, really can't stand is the truth behind the myth, sitting on the fence, whether it's fantasy or not. And cavalry is going to be really rare. You can only get them, and they're centaurs. You can only get them in various places, and they're going to be super rare, unless you're the Amazons. And the cavalry is fairly common. That seems broken to me. I don't know about you, but having one faction that's just oh yeah, we just have cavalry, and everyone else I can have one. Yay. I don't know.
I'll just have to see.
I hate the idea.
I'll see how balanced it is, I mean, maybe they've got really crap infantry, or maybe they've got really crap archers or something,
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to sieges, I guess, because Troy doesn't have,
better sieges than bloody Warhammer. Jesus.
Yes. Well, Warhammer was touched upon here too, actually.
It is.
Yes,
that's
it was.
what I'm more excited about.
Yeah. Well, there's new changes to the Wood Elves, which I really, really hope because I think the Wood Elves have done are terrible, because in the lore, anyway, they're very isolationist, right?
As they should.
They fight all around the world, but they basically live in Athel-Loren and don't want anyone coming into Athel-Loren. They don't want anyone going out of Athel-Loren. They're just all about Athel-Loren. But the gameplay encourages an expansionist gameplay. So you have to go conquer other lands to plant forests and get amber to rejuvenate your big tree. And I think
I hate it.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful.
They should have a gameplay that encourages an isolationist gameplay to fit with the theme of the.
Well, and I do like the idea of how Wood Elf outposts work, where it's basically you're just burning down civilization and returning it all to green space. I like the idea that instead of spreading chaos corruption, I can just be an anarchist elf lord and remove every state from the map, and we're just all going to live in the forest now. But the way it actually works out practically in the campaign could use a lot of work. So I'm very, very happy. Wood Elves are my favorite faction in Warhammer, aside from maybe Norska. So yeah, I'm very happy that they're getting a rework.
How could I ever have guessed that you'd like Norska?
Yeah,
it's just complete.
Exactly
Blindsided I am.
I'm very glad they're getting some more legendary lords. We're getting a female legendary lord, it looks like.
There's two options for that female legendary lord.
It's probably going to be Ariel.
It could probably be Ariel, Queen of Athel-Loren. Makes a lot of sense. I kind of hope it isn't, because I think there's someone a bit more interesting. Draika, which is a dryad woman, dryad person.
That would be cool. Or both.
She's not on very friendly terms with Orion and what's the other guy called? Orion. What's the other big dude? Durthu. Not on very good terms with them. Or with the dwarves. Hates the dwarves. But I think really a very interesting character that could totally be in it. And she was in original Warhammer Fantasy. I could give you a picture of her model on a square base, but she's also naked, so probably not.
Yeah, that's one thing I really like about the Wood Elves. The way Creative Assembly have gone with the design, because I think the early Dryads were, they were very 90s Game Workshop. Let's say, it's not, they were titty trees basically.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
Not a great design in my opinion, but the new ones is sort of it's kind of they look like tree people. They're kind of twisted in a way that a tree is, with bits of twig coming out of them, and they're they're I don't know how to describe
it.
They look
more
a fantastic
like
design.
They should look like.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I really like that. The other thing is, I want a Wood elf lord who is not Orion, because I don't like Orion. I don't really like how he plays. I don't really like his style or like his personality at all.
Yeah.
But like he's the only one that gets free access to the wood elf units. If you're playing as Durthu, it's mostly forest spirits and you have to pay amber to get the elf units. So I want another legendary lord who is not Orion and doesn't suck.
Yeah.
Sorry, but and has access to the elf roster as their main thing, not the forest spirit roster.
I will say, when I was preparing for this podcast, I was
happy.
incredibly shocked to like remember that there are only 2 legendary lords for the Wood Elves. I was like,
yeah,
oh yeah, there's obviously there's Orion, there's Durthu, and there's the other one that I forgot the name of, and the reason I forgot because they don't exist.
Yeah, there's the non-playable one that starts out like way down in the south somewhere, which I'm assuming that's probably going to be one of their new
I
legendary
would definitely
lords,
assume so. They'll play well with Grom, the paunch. He's right next to him.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's something I think they're adding more of it, moving, making sure there's a good number of factions that you can fight. So the Empire now borders, orcs, vampires, wood elves, and even lizard men. You've got that lizard man up in Albion for an inexplicable reason.
Yeah, like most randomly placed lord in the game probably, but sure, I'll go with it.
Well, I quite like it because it adds some diversity to the early game, actually, which I quite like.
If you own like all of the DLC, well, if you own Realm of the Wood Elves, Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2, you're basically going to get a hero, 2 legendary lords, 3 legendary lords, I think there's going to be 2 of them being Wood Elf, and there's going to be probably 1 from a different faction. And I don't know what that other faction is going to be yet. Yeah. It makes sense, I think, for it to be Beastmen, but I kind of want Beastmen to get their own, like, focused, like, this is the Wood Elf update that also includes another faction. I want the next one to be, this is the Beastmen update that also includes another faction.
Absolutely.
The Beastmen really
Beastmen need a lot of love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because the Beastmen are basically, they play like Chaos at the moment, don't they? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just they're the I mean, Wood Elves and Beastmen were the 2 Warhammer 1 factions that needed the most work. Mm-hmm. And so if they're doing Wood Elves now, it makes sense that they should just do Beastmen next and kind of bring everybody up to par with modern Warhammer 2.
Yeah. So I wonder what they'll add to Beastmen, because I still think the best game design is making the gameplay funnel you into in a way that makes you feel more immersed in the faction.
Right.
Which I think the Wood Elves do badly at the moment.
Yeah.
I think the best example is like dwarves. The grudge system makes you feel like a dwarf filling a grudge book.
Exactly.
Perfect. The gameplay merges with the lore and immersion. How would you do that with a Beastman? Is a problem. How would you make them? What do the Beastmen do? They just sort of ravage around the place, which is what Chaos do.
I think.
I feel like you 3 have devolved into a Warhammer lore podcast.
Look, I am holding back,
and I'm just completely lost.
We do have to go in a minute because I have to set up for other stuff. But the one other thing from this devlog, they're adding some non-Mon factions to Total War 3 Kingdoms, which is the southern, basically the southern tribes that the Wu and the Wei, the Wu and the Shu interacted with during the 3 Kingdoms period. So these are culturally distinct. They're not Han Chinese factions, which might help with sort of some of the issues of not as much unit diversity that a lot of people feel or perceive in 3 Kingdoms. Mm-hmm. They're also going to be adding gate battles, which is awesome because that was a big part of the 3 Kingdoms period. The Battle of Hulao Gate is probably one of the 4 or 5 most famous battles in the era.
And wonderful for gameplay. Like, think how fantastic the new forts in the Empire have been.
Yeah.
No, it's lovely. It really breaks up a map. And if they add that for Kingdoms, I'm all for that.
Yeah, and just having more stuff going on down in the south. Like right now, it's just basically Yan Baihu and the Sun family are just down there scrapping it out, and there's not really much else going on.
Yeah.
And I've lamented that like almost every faction in 3 Kingdoms will eventually just funnel you into this little area between like Chang'an and the sea, and it kind of gets boring fighting over that same region over and over again. So it'll be nice to have more to do down on the other parts of the map.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
the best
before we
one
wrap up,
you know, making a huge southern expedition, because once you've completed, you've got the great Chinese bread basket, and now you want to unite China, which is like the best feeling in Three Kingdoms. You know, finally getting a united China and making a great southern campaign a lot more interesting. All for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So before we wrap up, Rose, what have you been up to lately, and where can people find your stuff?
I'm mostly been on YouTube lately because it's much easier to record with a baby.
Right.
Still trying to get. I am still live on Twitch sometimes. Mostly on YouTube. I've been working on some CK2 videos edited for the first time, which has been a lot of fun.
Editing? What's that?
Yeah, I know. I mean, and I think Lambert has a problem with the way that series is going from the screenshots I've showed him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly a thing. Things
England is gone. Goodbye, England. Oh, and Father Loris, Wales is owned by Ireland.
Disgusting.
That's precisely what I was thinking.
Hey, at least they're Celts.
Yeah, but you know, you have to get a chooser on the English throne. That's the ultimate.
No, but see, at least you're better off because everywhere else in the British Isles is owned by the Aztecs
or Finland, apparently. The Finns are there as well. I'll
accept the Irish over the Aztecs.
Oh, sorry. There's a few Cornwall is owned by Finland.
Yeah, that would be the best part, apparently, in that absolute horror show that is your British Isles. That would be the best part to live in.
Oh, wow.
It's just, oh, God.
Lambert, what have you been up to, and where can people find your stuff?
Last night, I finished recording my final episode of the Papal States campaign that I've been running for EU4. Still doing the 1356 mod as well, playing as the Ottomans. And next week, I am going to be playing some Mayo and Taxes. I'm also going to be doing something with the devs where they basically teach me how to play the new version of Mayo and Taxes. And I record it so that you also know how to play it. So if you want to know how to play M&T 3.0, bearing in mind, I've played an awful lot of M&T 2.5 and I'm so lost with 3.0, you're going to need it. So come to my channel.
And that was 1 hour and 41 minutes for Lambert to mention Mayo and Taxes.
Look.
Oh, wow.
You're right.
Yeah, you almost missed it. Like
it's never going to get missed. It's going to be there at some point. Don't worry. But I was saving it.
Loris, what have you been up to, and where can people find your stuff?
So I've been working on a few private commissions. I've made a public comic, which will be published next week. I'm also
awesome.
Working on Humankind still, so it should be some more comics coming every single week. Should be a new comic related to the theme of the What If contest. Good fun. I also, pubs have reopened in Wales, so I've been catching up on quite a lot of liver damage. So. Yeah, that's what I've been up to, basically. Mostly the liver damage.
You can't let that liver get too complacent, right?
Exactly. You got to beat it into shape, you know?
It's like how martial artists, they'll punch a wall so that they toughen up their hands so that they, won't.
It's getting soft get hurt when they're and flabby.
People.
I want my liver to be hard as a rock. That's what I want.
It's also the brain thing. Like it's I can't remember where it was from, but it's like. The slowest brain cells, just like the slowest deer in a herd, the slowest ones die off first, increasing the overall average speed of the herd and the brain. Therefore, drinking a shit ton and getting absolutely plastered is a great thing.
Exactly,
don't take a drinking advice from the podcast, please.
Survival of the fittest. Brain cells.
Follow the laws in your jurisdiction and always drink responsibly. Yeah, don't listen to Lambert about anything, basically.
Wow. Drink responsibly and drink a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm Loresworn Order on Twitch. We're every Wednesday night we stream some sort of non-strategy game. Currently it's Dark Souls, where I talk about some sort of like historical or nerd topic with my friend DM Schmeier. Tonight we're probably going to be talking about World War I, if that interests you at all. And then Sundays and Mondays are strategy stream days. Currently, we're doing EU4 every Sunday and Total War 3 Kingdoms every Monday. But I'm definitely looking at seeing it, maybe trying out some MEIOU and taxes, or possibly the New Order, which just released for Hearts of Iron 4, which is like a 1960s Nazis won World War II scenario that apparently has like a lot of like branching story curated content, like way more than even
I can't. I'm still waiting
like
on a mod.
Is that based on Man in the High Castle by any chance?
UI. No, it's completely different. Actually.
No, is it? Well, I mean, is it like similar in like, you know, the Nazis won, and this is the map.
Yeah, it's a completely original scenario. It's not like based on any existing property.
I should say
but
it's also incredibly grim.
Same general
I will
idea.
watch someone play it then. No interest in playing that by myself, but I'll watch someone else do it.
The UI is terrible. Like the mods, please somebody just remove that UI. It's terrible. It's all like CRT monitors. But the writing's lovely. The scenario is great because it's actually a horrible, grim world. It's completely miserable. You know, it's not,
in the grim darkness of the ultimate future.
If the Nazis won World War II,
they damn the Mediterranean caused huge desertification across the continent.
Did they do Atlantropa, where they blocked up the Mediterranean?
That's right, and it's a huge environmental disaster, as it would be.
Well, too much bloody salt there, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So
anyway, and follow the podcast on all of our social media and stuff, and we'll be right back here this same time next Wednesday. Till then, I don't have a sign off.
Your sign off phrase can be "Don't ask about YouTube."
32 episodes deep, and we still don't have a sign off phrase. So goodbye.
See you later.
Bye, y'all.
Before we forget, Tibet.
Oh, yeah, I was going to mention Tibet when we were talking about slavery and stuff, but I didn't, so.
There we go. No Tibet, no YouTube. Bye, guys.
Bye.